Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Think Connect podcast. We are back with episode 2 of Bitcoin, blockchain, and NFTs. Our guest today started his career at a startup that gave poorly connected South African communities access to Wi-Fi, but he couldn't shake the urge to travel and ended up teaching in Hong Kong. While in Hong Kong, he taught himself video editing and photography, and this taught him the more valuable lesson that you can learn absolutely anything on the internet. That gave him the confidence to dive headfirst into crypto, Web3, and NFTs. This interest turned into an obsession, and he spent every spare moment learning, trading, and networking. He's now a partnership manager based in London, and in his spare time, he consults projects. He is currently working on the development of an NFT agency and educational podcast on the side. Byron, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, guys. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very excited talking about NFTs and what I love.
Fantastic. And we are obviously joined by my co-host, Nicola. Nicola, how are you doing today?
Very well, thanks, Nick. All good.
Fantastic. So just to summarize sort of the last podcast, we did a deep dive in what Bitcoin was. We did a deep dive into Bitcoin mining, and we looked at the blockchain and basically gave you guys like a step-by-step guide on basically how to invest in cryptocurrencies. It's basically crypto for dummies. And we actually didn't have enough time to get into NFTs because the conversation was just that good, and we were just so interested in it, and we absolutely, we just couldn't get enough of it, really. So what I'm gonna start with is basically just the most basic question you can really ask, and that is, what is an NFT, Byron?
An NFT, well, we can go into what it stands for first, and just like a lot of the cryptocurrency terminology, it's unnecessarily confusing. So NFT stands for non-fungible token. The word fungible means you can exchange one-for-one value. So all cryptocurrencies and money is fungible because I can give you $1 and get $1 back. It doesn't matter which dollar I have, and you can't really tell the difference. Whereas non-fungible is the opposite of that. And so you can distinguish the difference between one or the other, and it is unique. So that's basically what non-fungible, and it's a token, it's stored on the blockchain, but that's a bit complicated, and I'd rather say that it's just a digital asset. Yeah. And resembles unique ownership.
Okay, and how do they work?
So like we spoke about last time, we had ERC20 tokens, which are fungible tokens. And that's a type of contract on Ethereum and other blockchains. It's a token standard, and they create these standards, which is a smart contract. And that standard enables people to code it in a specific way so it can be recorded on the blockchain in the right way. Because if everyone is creating their own smart contracts and their own token standards, it would be all over the place and quite hard to maintain a standard. The token standard for NFTs is called ERC 721, and that represents unique ownership. So everyone can copy and paste this smart contract, and then they can add the different functionality to it depending on what they want to achieve with that project. And then we have another smart contract which is in between the two called ERC 1155. And that's a combination basically of a unique asset and cryptocurrency. So the tokens are usually similar or the same, but they still have the functionality of an NFT on the smart contract. Does that make sense, or is it still a bit
so like so what I really want to understand is basically, I had a mate who once sent me a photo, and it was 4 monkeys, digital photo of 4 different monkeys. Like one was wearing glasses, one was wearing a hat. Like, it's very cool. Like, it looks cool. But it looks like it could have just been a clip art that you would have made on Paint or on like a Photoshop or something like that. That's all it was. And he was like, I just flipped these things he's like, I just bought these for $150 and flipped them for like $2,000. And I was like, what? What? What do you mean? It looks like a clip art picture. So I don't understand. How does that have value? Like, what gives that digital picture any sort of value?
So the value is what lies underneath the picture, which, like I said, is unique ownership. It's undisputed. No one can take that away from you. You are the original owner. And a guy who produces content online in the space called Daniel Tenner used quite a good analogy to compare NFTs to paper. So it's basically a digital form of paper, and then you can build upon that. But the basic explanation is, how many use cases can you think of for paper? Paper can be tickets to an event. Paper can be origami, so you can build actual things. Paper can be a piece of art. Paper can be a contract between two people. Paper is our passport. Paper is our university degree. There's so many different use cases for paper, and NFTs have those exact same use cases and some, except they're digital. And I think that analogy really gets the point home, because it makes so much more sense and makes everything so much more convenient if all that paper can be secured digitally. It's undisputed that you are the owner, or that is your identification, but it's online. And that's basically what an NFT is.
Okay, so going back to fiat currencies from our last episode, the only reason that digital asset or picture of those 4 monkeys has value is because we give it value, right?
Yes. So, and the only additional point to that is that no one else can dispute that you own it. So the original artist can create those monkeys, which would make them more valuable, and you own them. And someone can copy and paste it and recreate that NFT, but you can go and look in the metadata and see who created it. And if the original artist didn't create those exact same images, it won't have the same worth. And that's what I find really interesting, because like we spoke about last week about how fiat currency and, questioning like what is money and what gives value to money. It's exactly the same in NFTs and art. It makes you question, like, why is a Van Gogh piece of art that priced at that price range, or Picasso, or anything like that? And it becomes, it boils down to what authorities think has value and what it doesn't, basically. And it's very similar in the NFT art world. It's similar sort of drivers.
Yeah. So for the listeners, that makes total sense to me now. So basically, it's like if you were to buy the original piece or the original painting from Picasso, it would be worth an absolute fortune. But there could be replicas or printouts, for example, that wouldn't be as expensive because it's not the original piece, basically. It's very interesting that you can go into the back end of the picture and check out did you say it was the meta code or?
Metadata, yes. So you can see who created it. You can look at every transaction. So every person who changed hands. So you can look at all the different prices that was sold at, and if it was sold for a profit or a loss. And what's amazing about NFTs, particularly in the art world, is you can attach royalties to your piece of art, and you can make money on those art sales for the rest of your life and your children's lives. And so, like how Van Gogh, didn't make any money when he was alive, and then all his art was sold for millions after he died. In the NFT world, the same could happen, where a guy is producing great quality art, but no one buys it. Then he dies and his art starts selling for millions. He can get 5% on all those sales for the rest of his, well, not the rest of his life, but the rest of his family or lineage's life, basically. And so it just makes artists benefit from the value they create from all their hard work over the years. Because, I mean, it's like you see artists selling their first pieces of art for $15, and then they start going for millions, and they don't benefit from any of that.
Yeah. Okay. It's all starting to make sense now. It's just basically the digital version of what we already know, right? With a bit more added to it. Nicola, do you have any questions that you'd like to pose to Byron?
I'm fascinated by what you've just said, Byron, because I was thinking, if people could get this right, it's a form of wealth creation at the bottom of the pyramid.
Yes,
Because
it's rewarding artists for their work, and they don't normally get rewarded if they blow up. All their previous work was sold for pennies on the dollar, and if they could resell them now, they'd be worth a lot more money. So for them to be able to benefit from the value they've created over time is, I think, amazing.
So then, and again, we're sort of moving away from print stuff to digital stuff. So I could theoretically have a large digital screen in my house, and I could have a series of NFTs showing as images, and I have rotational paintings, and I could own all of those images originally. Somebody else have a copy of it on their screen, but they don't own the original. I've got the Picasso. Okay.
And you find most people display things that they own on Twitter, the profile pictures. There are a few people who don't own it, but also if your wallet is public, you can check if someone owns it, which is also the beauty of the blockchain. So you don't need to have their identity, but you can have their wallet and go into their wallet and confirm whether they own it or not, or whether they're lying and whatever they're saying is not backed by what they own.
So let's just go back a step to the art itself. So you've spoken a lot about artists, and if you think about the art piece, so we've referenced Van Gogh, we've referenced Picasso. Now they produced physical paper, fiat type works. In the NFT space, digital art is also seen as unique. Like these 4 monkeys were digital, they weren't physical. And someone said to me the other day, it's something called phygital, which I thought was right. So, I mean, if you just take my scribbles that I've just done here on this iPad, that's digital art, even though it's words and pictures. Is that NFTable, or does NFT mean I've got to create a piece of art and then sell it? Or could it be a photograph, or could it be a sketch on my iPad?
It could literally be anything you want it to be, and you just put it on the blockchain. There's a pretty popular photography collection called Where My Vans Go. Where my Vans Go, you know, the shoes.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like a van, like a bus.
Yeah.
But the shoes, Vans. So, so he climbs buildings. A lot of it was sort of illegal, and he'd sit on the top of the buildings and take photos of his shoes in the picture, and they are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, that collection. And there's also I think the most sought after photography collection is one called Twin Flames, where a guy took a photo of twins, multiple photos of different sets of twins.
I've heard about this.
And the most expensive one is an image of where one of the twins has passed away.
Oh wow.
So yeah, and that's what I love about NFTs. You can build a whole lot of gamification and game theory on top of it, and it just enables you to add way more to how you speak to a community and how you connect with your audience.
That's so interesting. So like I sometimes use stock images. So you got loads of stock image websites where you can get stock photos and stuff. And I'm just thinking, like, if any photograph, for example, can be a digital asset, then these guys who are putting their stock photos up are putting them in the wrong place. They should be throwing them up on the blockchain, right?
Yes and no, because just throwing it up on the blockchain doesn't necessarily give it value. If a lot of people had access to those images previously on like a stock website, then there's going to be lots of those, or lots of copies of that image out there already, and some people may be using it in a professional capacity because they paid for it. And so collectors and that type of thing will do their research. So there has to be a bit of a story behind it, and it has to be of high quality work. And usually stock images aren't necessarily the highest of quality, or else they would be selling those images for a lot more money. Sure. So it is about quality, but which is like art, you know, it comes down to taste, but I think there is a threshold of quality, and just putting anything up there doesn't mean it's going to sell for anything.
Okay. So you're obviously big into NFTs. So I'm guessing your answer to this question will be yes. But for people like us, Crypto for Dummies, who are only just learning about it, are rather NFTs a good investment?
Well, that's an interesting question because it's usually phrased like the way you phrase it now, looking at one subsect of what NFTs can be used for. So if it's just art, which is normally the investment side of things, then it obviously depends. Like if you got your hands on a Twin Flames photo when they first launched for $300, you'd be sitting pretty with a $500,000 photo. So
It's mad.
they can be a good investment. You have to know what you look like, and like I said, just buying an NFT doesn't mean it's going to go up. 99% of all the NFTs out there are going to be worth nothing. But that's what I love about the space. It's like everyone's just experimenting, trying new things, seeing if it works. And so it's like, would you consider from the investment angle, like investing in your education? Because there's one platform where the NFTs act as an access key into a education platform where you can learn more about NFTs and things like that. And that's where I think education is going to go, because it's now you're not paying upfront for the education. You don't know what's behind those doors. You don't know if you're going to learn something new. Like I paid for a videography course and I was very disappointed with what I wouldn't say learned, because I didn't learn anything new.
Oh, really?
But you don't really know what's behind those doors until you pay for it. And so with NFTs, you own access to that course. So you could do the course and then you sell it on to the next person. And then that also creates incentive for the course maker to drive value, to actually create a good course, because the people then selling it won't value it that highly and they'll sell it for a lot less if the value in the course wasn't good enough. And if the value in the course is way more than what you paid for, then that'll drive the price up of those NFTs that give you access to the course, which in turn shows that there's even more value in this course.
That's so interesting.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Yes.
Go back a step. I'm like, you just lost me there. So we've got the NFT and we've got art.
Yes.
And the NFT
art is the most talked about one, but it's just such a tiny subsect of like what NFTs can actually do and how they're going to change the way we do things. But because of like how expensive Bored Apes got and all the hype, that's what people focus on. But there's way more to them.
Let's go back a step, okay? Because this is NFT for dummies, so I'm the dummy now. But what we understand about it is it's digital art, right?
Yes.
So right now, as of this point in this podcast, we're talking about NFTs, and what we understand NFTs to be is digital art, a digital form of paper. However, an NFT is not restricted to art. It could also be other things. And those other things that you've mentioned when we were comparing it to fiat are things like tickets, passports, origami, certificates, money. And then you went boom into education. So I can understand all those other bits because they're fiat. But now online education is not a paper thing. It's not a fiat thing. It's something else. Are you saying that NFTs are also online courses?
No, I'm saying just like a ticket, it can give you access to that course.
Okay.
I see.
But you own that ticket forever. So once you finish the course, you could sell it to the next person who wants to take part in it.
Okay.
And
then
yes,
you said the transparency of, for example, the video course that you've done. You said that you pay for it and then you can't actually see what's in there, and then there's nothing, you can't see what's behind the closed doors, and then you did the course and you got no value from it. So how does the next person who buys the ticket knows what's in the course know that they're going to get value from it?
the people who are in the course value that. And so if they have done the course, or everything in the course is what they know, they're not going to try and sell that course for a lot of money. And so demand and supply sort of takes place. And if they don't value it, they'll just want to get out and just want to get some money back and recoup it, because they're like, oh, that course is horrible, I regret buying it. But if they're like, wow, this is amazing, and they're getting so much value from it, they might even hold on to that ticket because they're trying to squeeze every drop out of that course. And so more people want to get in because they're like, why are these people not like letting go of this course? It says it'll take you 2 months to finish, but these guys are holding on to these tickets. No one's selling them, and that'll drive the price up.
Cool.
So yeah, it just incentivizes the course maker to drive value and actually.
Hang on a minute. So if I'm the course maker, so I've been in this game of training for many years. I make a course, I create or design or present a course. And now I put out so many tickets, right? So let's say I issue 100 tickets to my course, and it's the videography course that you attended. Everyone thinks it's rubbish, and that's the end of my tickets. But you're now saying my 100 tickets that I've issued could escalate in value as they get sold from one participant that's completed the course to a new participant that hasn't completed the course. Now, how does the originator get any value from that?
Like the artists, you can add 5% on any sale.
Royalties.
Made on your course. Royalties. And you can decide how much. So if it's a small course like that, then maybe you add a 10% royalty, and that's just part of buying into the course. And then people accept that, knowing that when they sell it on, it's going to be 10%, but it's basically another sort of tip to you to keep the course going because you're providing such value. People respect that fact.
So I want to get this logically into my head, because you've been on the advanced training and I haven't been on the beginner's course yet. So if I write a course, I publish it on Thinkific or Coursera or a platform, and do I publish it on an NFT platform?
Well, you could do your own platform, gated platform. It just has to be like Web3 capable, have Web3 capabilities. So it has to accept, or it has to be able to interact with a hot wallet, like we spoke about last time, usually a MetaMask wallet. And so when you try to get access to that platform, it'll check your wallet to see if you're holding that NFT, and then it'll automatically give you access, which is sort of the whole ethos of Web3, where the owner gets access and you don't need to log in with your email. And so you can remain anonymous if you wanted to, but it will give you access purely on ownership.
Okay, so now let's come back to my beginner's course. So now I've presented a course with my iPad. I've got all this content. I publish it on a platform that is Web3 enabled. So this means it can be purchased with digital currency through a hot wallet. I issue 100 tickets. So I restrict the number of tickets that are available because I want to see if it's got value, it'll go up in price. Nick buys a ticket to my course. And the first one, he says, Auntie Nikki, that was absolute crock of shit. And the tickets go nowhere. But the second course I do, Nick says, geez, that was fantastic. I'm going to sell my ticket. So he pays $100 for the ticket. And I say, and now he's going to sell it for $200 a ticket. It's gone up in value. But I have put into my NFT contract, my smart contract, a 10% royalty. So when he sells it for $200, I get 20.
Yes.
And then if that person sells it for $300, I get $30. And if that person sells it for $400, I get $40.
Yes.
Okay. But I get $40 in digital currency, get paid back to my hot wallet.
Yes. Well, whichever wallet you use to deploy that smart contract, all the royalties will just go into that wallet automatically.
So is it in my interest? I'm trying to figure out the commercial model here. Is it in my interest to restrict the number of tickets so they go up in value? Or is it in my interest to issue more tickets?
Well, it depends. It depends on the model. Because if you issued more tickets, then that would increase supply and could drive the price down. So it just depends on what you want to do. And you could also code into the contract the NFT to expire after 1 year or after 2 years. Because at the moment, if you deploy those NFTs as they are, they'd last forever. And so that's also a completely different model, because people don't usually give lifetime access to a course.
Yeah.
So it just adds a whole like extra layer of like dynamics and choices to make on top of what is happening now.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Make a course. Let's make a course.
Let's make a course and put it on the Web3 space. So basically, like, if I put what if I did this and I created a course and I gave it a 2-year time period and I said this course is only going to be out for 2 years and then it's done. What happens to those tickets now once the course is done? And the reason why I ask this is because like, what if I wanted to, for example, reopen the course in 5 years' time? Would the value of those tickets maybe go up if they were held onto, or does that just cut the value if I say that the time period of this course only lasts 2 years?
Well, that's a question about demand and supply. Like, I can't answer that. Like, it depends on how valuable the course is, or how valuable they saw it in those first 2 years and they wanted it back. And then when it comes back, boom, like,
okay, yeah,
this crazy course is back out there. But you could also create, what's great about NFTs is you could just build functionality on top of it. So the course can expire after 2 years, but people still own those NFTs. So then you can gamify it and create different things, or you can give them access to a whole different set of things, or they can burn the NFT to claim a real life hoodie as memorabilia. There's a whole lot of things that you can do with it.
What? Bro, you've taken us in the last 2 podcasts. You've taken us into a different world. Like, this is outrageous. It's very interesting.
That's why I'm so excited about it.
Talk about burning NFTs.
So burning NFTs is like burning a piece of paper. So a lot of projects do it, which helps with the sort of game theory and economics and demand and supply. Damien Hirst actually did a project. He did it on the Palm blockchain, and he released 10,000 NFTs of his classic polka dots. And I think it was a year after he released them, you could decide whether you wanted to claim a physical NFT of the exact same image. I mean, not physical NFT, that of a physical piece of art that looked exactly the same as your NFT. And in order to do that, you had to burn your NFT, or you kept your NFT. And then that affects demand and supply. And I think just over half burnt their NFTs to claim the real thing. And 4,000 odd people held onto their NFTs. So now there's only 4,000 something NFTs, which changes the whole demand and supply graph, because supply has basically halved. And then the other people are happy because they got a real Damien Hirst.
That is genius. That's such a clever model. Creating the supply, shooting up the demand.
Yeah, and that's all it is. So a lot of like the sneakerheads who, flip sneakers, they got into NFTs because they were so used to it. And a lot of these communities interact on Discord. A new project will spin up a Discord server and people will chat in there trying to get their hands on the limited supply of NFTs. And that's how sneakerheads used to communicate anyway. So they just jumped over to NFTs because it just made sense. There's like limited supply, but it's obviously artificial supply, just like the sneakers. And that's what drives value. There's only a limited amount. You need to get your hands on them. But more demand than supply, and you sell it for more than you paid for.
So when you say sneakerheads, are you referring to people who are obsessed with sneakers, or is this now like Nike and Adidas going into that sort of crypto space?
Oh, it's people obsessed with sneakers. Because you know how
Okay.
like Nike will have a limited edition drop of a sneaker where there's only like 4,000 of them and people line up for days, which is similar to NFTs. There's only 10,000, but 100,000 people want in. So the 10,000 people that are successful and get a chance to buy it at the mint price will then be able to flip it instantly because of just pure demand and supply.
Yeah.
They'll be able to sell it for like 10 times the value right away.
So it's fascinating, isn't it? How all of this is based on what I call perceived value. And it works on sort of consumer consumption. It works on, people's need to own, to be identified, to feel like they have something. I mean, it's just a
Yes.
fascinating play on human psychology, because
It
all
is.
of this is just perceived value. It's imagined value. And because people have almost like moved away from tangible values, you could almost say it non-fungible could be intangible. A non-fungible token is just like an intangible thing. But what they're doing to create supply and demand is converting the intangible into something tangible. So you burn your intangible asset, a digital picture, to get access to a physical asset, which is maybe a print version of the copy. So if I took my scribbles, my work of art, here's my work of art. I don't know if you can see it. Here you go.
We will put that up on the screen for the viewers.
So that picture's going in our course, and we're going to put a 10% royalty on it for all of us. But now if somebody wanted a print version, and it's not a very elegant picture of trees in the sky, and let's say I sold 1,000 of those NFTs online, and well, there would be one original one, and then people could have copies. But I could issue one of 100. I could make 100 available. So 100 people could have an NFT. And then I could write to those 100 people and say, if all of you burn your digital asset, like it explodes somehow online, it's obviously a button that you press, then we will send you a printed version of this on canvas to your destination.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's what Damien Hirst did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you have to trust that I will actually do that delivery. I will print it and do the delivery.
Yes.
You'll get it. Okay. So there's an element of trust in there. But the whole system is basically playing on human psychology and the perception of value.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's like in the metaverse, which is something I think is coming, it's like flexing on steroids. So everybody wants to flex. That's why we buy a Rolex or a Lamborghini. Or like if you're in the city, the Lamborghini is not actually going to get you there much faster than a normal car, and the Rolex isn't going to tell the time better than a Casio watch. But people get it to flex, to show people that they have X amount of money or they've worked really hard, or people have art on their walls. But
yeah,
all that type of flexing is only to your immediate circle. It's only to the people that are going to see you in real life there and then. Who are going to walk past your car or look at your wrist. But now in the metaverse, you can go into a virtual world where there's millions of people wearing your artificial Rolex NFT so you definitely own it, and it costs $20,000. And everyone knows that NFT costs $20,000, but now 1 million people can see that you own it online. And so it's just taking that psychology and like blowing it way out of proportion, because now you can flex to millions of people instead of just the people in real life.
Got it. So it's like, for example, it's like a Nike pair of sneakers. You know, when like a new pair of sneakers comes out, like the Air Maxes, and everybody wants to buy these Air Maxes. If you, for example, were the sole creator of the Air Maxes, then everybody else in the metaverse, you can see all these other people who would be wearing your shoes. Whereas if you were in the real world, you could only see, like you said, the people who are right around you, who you can visually see are actually wearing your shoes. So
Yeah.
that begs me to the question, like, the scale is just enormous, right? You can sell to anyone at any time, anywhere.
Exactly. And like, speaking of Nike, they bought a profile picture project called Artifact. They bought it last year, and they're now creating augmented reality clothing. And so it's like virtual hoodies. They're creating virtual shoes. And so they're like, it's an augmented reality means, so you'll get the physical hoodie. But when you look at it through an app on your phone, the hoodie will grow wings. And so it's like overlap. So it's like they're just building upon these communities, and they're creating a pair of shoes. And then you'll also have the NFT of those shoes. So you can flex in the metaverse, but you'll have a real pair created by Nike too. And those will be augmented reality. So you look at it through your phone, and then something cool will happen when you look at those shoes in real life.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So and this is
hang on. So now
Yes.
you scrambled my head. Okay. My old brain is now, and it's not that old, but it feels ancient all of a sudden. So let's go into this world called the metaverse and flexing. What I know about flexing is you like to do this with your, bit of muscle stuff. Now I'm flexing in a world that doesn't exist. It exists, but it doesn't exist. It's not like a table. I can see a table, but I don't feel and touch a table until they figured that one out. So now we've gone from NFTs, and I can put my NFTs into the metaverse, which is a bit like an extension of Second Life, but it's become much more significant. So I go into the metaverse to show off to my friends, who I determine who can see me and who can't, what I own, even though what I own isn't physical, it's digital. So I go into the metaverse. It's amazing how the world is going. So I go into a world online where I can see things and people. They're my friends, they're the community. We're doing a podcast even in the metaverse. And then along comes a Rolex, but it's actually an NFT. It's not a real Rolex. It's a picture of a Rolex. And I know it's Nick's birthday coming up. So I'm like, oh, that's a cool Rolex. I'm going to buy the virtual Rolex original NFT and give it to Nick for his birthday. Right? And then Nick's flexing is showing off in the metaverse that he has got a Rolex from his aunt for his birthday.
Yes, but so the NFT would probably be wearable on a character. It wouldn't just be like a floating image of a Rolex. So it'll be attached to your character, like your character would wear shoes or things like that. And like the character itself is also an NFT. So it could be super rare, and it could be your identity in a particular virtual world. But we don't need to get too complicated and say like metaverses have to be a virtual world. Like Twitter is part of the metaverse. Social media is part of the metaverse. Like on crypto Twitter, a lot of people have their NFTs as their profile pictures. So it's not their face. It's a picture of a CryptoPunk or a monkey or something, because that is a bigger flex. It's saying, I now look at my Twitter profile. I own something that's worth $300,000, which is a flex.
Mm.
So what is a flex?
Showing off.
It's just showing off. It's like, why do you buy the Rolex in the first place? That might be a hot take to some.
It's just basically, it's all a status thing. So when you're flexing, you're just trying to show off, all the cool things that you have. Or it's like bragging.
It's amazing to me how this model of the world, and I'm thinking of a generational shift, how this model of the world and how it's being represented is almost it's like an exaggeration of ego. It's like so egotistical that it's appealing to everyone's, I don't know I'm not even sure what the right term is, but everyone needs to be recognized and seen in some way. And it's like an ego is all about better than, smarter than. So,
I think status has been around for ages, and social media has just fueled that even more, because we now have access to everyone. I mean, I remember going through the awkward stage in like grade 9 and like not knowing how to dress and wearing bright fluorescent colors and belt buckles. But that was because we didn't have Instagram and we didn't know what was cool. And now I think kids skip that stage because they're exposed to what is cool. They can see what the famous people are wearing or what they're buying. And so consumerism, it's just like turned consumerism up to 100 basically.
Yeah. And also, like, if you think about it, there's a lot, I'm just talking about maybe some people who wouldn't have that status or wouldn't have access to that status in real life. It's much, or people who don't feel like, I don't know, for example, as confident, it's much easier to sit behind a laptop screen and join a metaverse, you know, and have all of this status on a metaverse than actually do it in real life, which makes it a lot more appealing to a lot more people.
Yeah, exactly. You can be more confident, and you can create a whole persona. Like,
but it's a false, it's a false sense of reality though, which is just it's just mind blowing, and people are buying into it.
What is reality? Like, that could become more of our reality in the future. The online could become the reality, and going outside would be a foreign thing.
Yeah, but if you, but you have to eat in this reality in order to survive. You can't just start eating food in the metaverse and then survive in the real world. Do you know what I mean?
But Deliveroo can deliver all your food. You don't need to leave your house.
That's also very true. That's very true. So, it's just mind blowing.
Where's the world going?
I know. So this sounds like it's first of all a lot to take in, but it sounds amazing. But it can't all be good, right? So there must be some sort of risk involved in this whole NFT process. So from your experience or from your knowledge, what are the risks involved?
So I think the risks that most people attach to NFTs come from the hype that happened 6 to 8 months ago when Bored Apes were just going up and up and up, and everyone was like, how the hell are these monkeys worth so much money? And so there were a lot of ill-intentioned actors entering the space, just launching an NFT project, because it's like a completely different model where you give these people funding up front based on the promises they've made. And it's a lot of the time they were anonymous and they weren't backed in any previous achievements. They just had some cool looking images and said, we promise to create an awesome community, bring you great utility. And everyone's like, oh, great. Everyone just wants to make money. And there were a lot of speculators in the space. And so everyone was just giving these people money. And these people they were like 19-year-old kids who'd make $2 million on the NFT launch, like right away. They've made $2 million. And then they've made these promises, but they have $2 million in their pocket. And they're like, oh, do I need to, like, I've got the money now. Do I need to deliver on all these things I said I'd deliver that will give this NFT utility? And so we call that a rug pull. And so some of them may have not intended to do that, but it happened quite frequently. And so you, as like an investor in the space, you'd have to be wary of that and look for it and really vet these founders and see whether they're worth spending, like investing your money into. That's why in this bear market has sort of changed the space, and now people are building projects that actually solve issues. So I think the next bull run that happens, it's going to be a completely different space than just like 10,000 profile pictures. A community that sort of provides some form of utility is not really going to happen anymore. And it's going to be projects that actually solve real utility, like those other things I spoke about with paper, like identification and just real world use cases.
So where does one even go to buy an NFT? You know, like in the last episode, we spoke about Binance and Luno and all those exchanges where you would buy cryptocurrency. So where would you go to buy an NFT, a piece of art, or in this case, an educational course?
Well, the secondary market, the most popular one is OpenSea. Yeah, so you can go on OpenSea and you can scroll for years through all the NFTs that are there. You can sort through the different types of projects, art. You can search for particular names, and then that'll give you on those websites. It'll give you the floor price, which is the lowest listing out of that collection. You can look at all the activity and how many sales happened in the previous hour, previous day, and you can scroll through them, because what these profile picture collections did is they'd have each one of the 10,000 of the collection would have a specific set of traits which would make it unique, and that would usually be randomly generated when they create the NFTs, and so that creates rarity, and so the rarer ones would be more expensive than the common ones.
Wow. Nicola, do you want to touch on that? Because I can see you jotting down some notes there.
My head is like in a I feel like ruffles. So I mean, I like what you were saying there, Byron, about, you know, people get onto these platforms, they almost take advantage of something that's going on, and then they've got money in their wallet, so they don't deliver on a promise. But isn't there nothing more than the promise of saying, here's the piece of digital art or digital paper? You mentioned something about building communities. Is there a responsibility on the people that generate the art to build a community, or is it just a transaction like buying something in a shop?
Well, yeah, so we're talking about two different kinds of NFTs. The one like Bored Ape Yacht Club or CryptoPunks, those I'd say are like the two most popular at the moment. Those are profile picture NFT collections, which means there's 10,000 different looking, well, they're similar, but they're different. They've got different traits. And so you can see the Bored Apes are all monkeys, but they'll be different colors. One will be wearing a hat. One will be wearing glasses, that type of thing. And so that is your ape. When you mint it or you buy it on the secondary market, that's your ape. There's not another one that looks like yours. And so those are more community focused. And so when you buy that ape, you enter into the community, and usually owning that NFT unlocks a certain amount of perks. And Bored Ape are building like a whole virtual world because of all the money they've made. And they also released an ape coin, and they also, all the holders get access to merch like hoodies and beanies and things like that. And they also dropped more NFTs to the holders over time. So what Bored Ape did was, if you bought your NFT, I think it was like $300 at the time, and you just held on to it over the year, they airdropped a thing called a serum. And so this adds a whole lot of gamification to it. And so your serum, you could inject your Bored Ape, and it would create 2 mutant apes. So now you have 3 NFTs. And you also got a pet dog from the Bored Ape Kennel Club. So now you have 4 NFTs for buying that one NFT. And these NFTs are selling for thousands of dollars. And all holders also got ApeCoin. And at the time it launched, I think it was ridiculous. It was like $100,000. I can't remember the exact number. But over the year of you buying that one ape for $300, you would have made about $1 million in value from all the perks and stuff they give you purely for owning your ape and holding on to it.
So all that stuff that they've issued is what I'm going to call virtual or digital. So the ape coin is a virtual coin. But the merch, is this something that you would wear in the metaverse? And what do you do in the metaverse? You flex? Or is
the merch is real.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put this into a commercial context. So what's actually happened here is, through the promise of community building and the restricted number of apes that were launched initially, what you've actually done is you've created a form of tribe. You've created a closed community that you can continue to buy to. So you've got your own like social economy going on here, which you're able to monetize with new NFTs. You're also able to monetize through physical merchandise. And you're also able to monetize, you could even add education and training into that. So it's very similar. I hate to say the word church, but it's almost like a religious movement, because you've got to believe in the values or the iconography of this particular ape to become attached to it. And there's obviously a whole bunch of cool attached to these little monkeys and their various colors and variations. So that's one type of NFT, and you can see commercially how that works. And it's also asset building. So as you go through time, your asset is building in value, because that's what I was saying right at the beginning. Because it's got such a low barrier to entry, this could be a great way for poverty alleviation. It requires massive education, but people willing to experiment in this space could actually do quite well financially. And because you don't need more than an entry level to get in. It's about creating followings. It's community centric.
And so, like you said, well, like I was comparing that to art, and art is a completely different agreement. The artist releases their piece of art, and it's take it or leave it, whether you see value in it or not. And depending on who created it, then so that's like the normal art world. There's no promises later on, but the artist can create some utility behind it if they wanted to at a later date. They could reward all their holders by giving them an extra piece of art that they've created, or all holders get access to their exhibition for free through that NFT. So you can build layers on top of it, but as an artist, you don't need to make any promises. It's like, this is my piece of art, and buy it or not.
You know that we've got this thing called the Thinking Fund, where we sell art to raise money for students to study, and it's actually a digital art course that they study. So it's a 12-month program. So last year we did rabbits. They were actually probably hares, but we called them rabbits. And this year we're doing owls. So is it possible that we created an NFT of each owl, and we could sell those NFTs online? We could have a digital exhibition online, and people could buy the NFT of the owl to raise money, and they could buy the physical owl. And some people might want the physical and the digital. Is that possible?
Yes, that is possible. Or you could link the digital to the physical, so the owner of the digital gets the physical. And you could auction them off, so you can see if it goes for a lot of money, or particular ones go for a lot of money. There's actually an owl profile picture project called Moonbirds that was started by a guy called Kevin Rose. He's like a serial entrepreneur who started a platform called Dig when Reddit first started. Dig and Reddit were like competing. And so a lot of the value in these profile picture projects is also the team behind it. And so because he was behind it, they made a lot of money on launch. Firstly, they sold the NFT for 1 ETH, I think it was. And back then that was like $3,000. So they sold 10,000 of them for $3,000. I mean, you do the math, that's 3 million, I think.
Oh, 3 million. Yeah, 3 million.
Yeah. So that's 3 million right away. And then the price skyrocketed up to 40 ETH, like instantly. And so they're making, and 40 ETH.
Ether.
Which is
Ethereum. Not Ether, Ethereum.
Yeah. And 40 ETH is $120,000. So that's instant. So someone paid $3,000 and they're selling it instantly for $120,000. But they're making five. Pardon?
What was the L project called?
Moonbirds.
It's okay. I can't keep up with you. You're just, my brain needs, I don't know if I need vitamin B or coffee, but I'm like,
and so they sold, so they got 3 million cash injection up front from selling out this project, the 10,000 Moonbirds. And then they start trading on the secondary market right away, and they're making 5% on every sale. And the floor price of these was 40 ETH, which is over $120,000 for one. And they're making 5% on each of those. And they were selling for a ridiculous amount of money. So they made a lot of money on the secondary too. And so they had an injection of like millions and millions of dollars.
So my dollars, to play in the NFT space, I've got to first get into the crypto space. So I need a wallet.
Yes.
I need a hot wallet. And what I've got to, and I know this, I've sort of got my head around smart contracts, which is the unique exchange agreement in essence. And I need a hot wallet to be able to enter the NFT space. Then I can start to publish my art. And that could be done with a digital picture and or an image of a physical picture. But whatever it is, it ends up online. It ends up like an image on an Instagram page, but I could put that image onto an NFT platform. I could put it onto OpenSea, right?
Yes.
And when I put it on OpenSea, do I put a price on it, or does the market determine the price? Is it an auction or is it a fixed price thing?
You determine the price. So if you're selling it for the first time, you pick how much you want to sell it for. And then the owner on the secondary market will decide what they want to list it for, if they want to sell it. So once you sell it first, then they can look at market conditions and see how much money they want to make from it, or if they're willing to take a loss because it's not selling for much. So once you own it, then you can, just like anything you own around you, you can decide what you want to sell that for.
So if I put something on and I sold it to you and Nick for $100, and then let's say it was an owl, you could then on-sell that for $200, but the profit would be kept by you.
Yes. Well, and you'd get a percentage. If you get 5%.
And I would get a percentage.
And
then, just hold on. So, but now it wouldn't be in dollars, it would be in ETH.
Yes.
And I would convert my ETH to dollars at whatever the current ETH value is.
Yes.
And can I cash in my ETH?
Yes. On the exchange that you first put your normal fiat currency into to buy the ETH. You send it back to the exchange and pull it out.
Okay. So I put $1,000 into the exchange. I convert some of that into ETH. I put my piece of art, my owl digital image, onto OpenSea. I price it in ETH. I sell it in ETH. I take my ETH, and it could be more or less than what I put in, and I take it back to the exchange, and then I withdraw it in the currency called Fiat Currency.
Yes.
When I withdraw it, where do I go? To an ATM, to a bank?
It'll be sent to your bank.
It's sent to my bank.
Yes, from that exchange. You put in your bank details and it'll just send you that amount.
So fascinating, isn't it? So I start out with some cash, for example, and even that isn't cash today, but I start out with some cash, which is in my bank. I put it on an exchange. I convert it into a currency. I then begin to trade. I like NFTs a bit more than the other one. It feels a bit more tangible, even though it possibly isn't. I then go and play in the OpenSea. I can trade my digital assets, which could be artworks, it could be training courses, it could be...
All right, guys. So unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, she's back. Okay. We lost you there.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I think my battery went flat. So basically, I go from fiat money onto an exchange, into a virtual world, a trading platform. And that virtual world could be an extension of the currency exchange, as in NFTs, or it could also go into the Metaverse, this other virtual world. I have this whole bunch of activity, which means I don't necessarily physically see you, but I'm engaging with you. And I'm wearing watches, and I've got, I look like a monkey, and but I can also get merchandise delivered to my house because I'm part of a particular community. And then I translate all that back, and eventually it gets reconverted into cash. So you come back to fiat.
The goal is to eventually not come back to fiat. At the moment, because of the way the world is, we have to come back to fiat because not many landlords will accept ETH as rent. But eventually you won't need to.
Yeah. So just two things there. I love what you said about Nicola, about basically just, well, I love how you summarized everything there, because my brain was going a bit off, like I was trying to put the pieces together. So thanks for that. But Byron, when you were referring to the exchanges and you said that you could just transfer to your bank, I thought the banking system, and correct me if I'm wrong, has not invested in the cryptocurrency space yet. So in order for that to happen, you would need to have a bank that would be willing to sign an agreement with an exchange. Am I correct in saying that exchange that you would pull your money out from?
So at the moment, banks are very happy to accept more funds. So once you get your money out into the exchange and you played around on OpenSea, made some money, lost some money, and you want to take your ETH back out, you convert it back into US dollars, and then you withdraw it. Withdrawing it, you just put in your bank details, just like how you would send money from one person to another on like your internet banking. It'll be the same system on that exchange. You just fill in your account number, your name and stuff, and it'll just send the money to it. Banks don't really have a problem with the money coming back in. But some banks over time had previously flagged exchanges, and so you couldn't get your money out. So you couldn't send money to the exchanges. But getting it back off the system from an exchange isn't really an issue.
Okay. And then the second thing that I wanted to touch on is you mentioned property, real estate. And we've had a conversation. We've briefly spoken offline about certifications and basically real estate and stuff like that. So can you first of all explain, we haven't even gotten to certifications yet. So can you first of all explain certifications and then talk about like how maybe, contracts for rent or property could eventually become in the crypto space?
So this basically similar to how like the goal of crypto and everything is to get rid of the middleman. And so when you think about it, how much easier would it be if our university certifications were NFTs? Because you can create an NFT that is called a soul-bound token, which means it is put in your wallet and you can't move it. You can't get rid of it. That is your wallet. And I think we're going in the direction where I will have a Byron Grealy wallet. It is mine forever. No one can take that away from me. And so whatever's any soul-bound token that is put in that wallet is directly related to me. And so our like identification, like our passport, will be a soul-bound token in our wallet, which will save a lot of time. You just scan it. There is no dispute of whether it's fake or not. We won't need those guys to look you up and down, open your passport, look at the passport to see if it's real. You just walk into the airport, you just scan a code. Okay, that's Byron, done. He goes through security. The same will happen. Well, I'd see a huge utility for refugees. I know refugees have a huge issue with proving that they have specific qualifications in order to get a job in their new country that they've settled in. Because of floods or war or fires, like they usually don't have those documents anymore. And so it's very difficult to prove it. But if that document is online and a soulbound token where Byron has this qualification and he's done these extra courses and those courses verify that they were completed and they are now soulbound on that on my certification NFT, then an employer checks that once and it's done. And that'll also help recruitment agencies, because a lot of people, you're looking at a paper CV that someone typed up. How do you know they actually did that?
Yeah.
And the only way you can actually tell is like the first interview. You ask them a few questions and you're like, oh, this guy knows absolutely nothing. We just wasted our time. So now that like soulbound tokens where that was put onto your wallet by the authorities or by an education system, there's no disputing it. So you send off your virtual CV that wasn't populated by you, it was populated by your experience. You skip 3 rounds of interviews because it's proven that you have those achievements. So that saves a whole lot of time, and we'll probably might even get rid of recruiting agencies as we know them now. And then when it comes to the deeds to your house, that will be an NFT. That'll get rid of all the middlemen. Someone can list their house on OpenSea even. You buy the house, they list the house, you make an offer, everyone else can make an offer, and that could drive the price up. No one's making an offer, could make you lower your listing price. You make the sale and you transfer ownership instantly. So yeah, no jumping through hoops, no stamp duties, no. I know there's a lot of hoops. I haven't bought a house yet, but I know there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just simplifying everything. It's like I said, it's all these paper documents can now go online, and you can make them undisputable. It just solves and saves a whole lot of time.
Sure. Sounds like the need for the human being is becoming far less and less. People are going to be cut out of work in the future, eh? And the population's rising. This could cause a bit of a predicament.
Well, I think we're going to be doing jobs that we don't know.
Yeah, that haven't been invented yet.
Yeah, they haven't been invented yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of jobs are going to become pointless.
Okay.
But at the same time, this process is going to be very slow because of all these industries holding on to their industries.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's not going to be a quick process. I mean, can you imagine the whole real estate business aren't going to just like take this lying down? So they're going to put up a fight and or adapt. So I'm just very interested to see, because I believe that's where it's going. It's just like, it's a no-brainer. Like, why not have your certifications online? Then there's no bullshit, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, so yeah, I'm just intrigued to see how long it takes and how it's going to happen.
The only thing I will say to that is, like, you can have all the certifications, and like you were saying, you can just, be hired for the job, but there is, depending on the job, there is also that human element that you do need to assess for sure. Like,
of course,
maybe that candidate could be a teacher, but not the correct personality, I guess, or teaching type for that particular position. But he'll have all the qualifications, all the experience.
Yeah, I'm just saying it can skip a whole lot of time and there's a lot of vetting that goes on in the hiring process, where you'd see the like HR manager first, because they're just they're just checking if you're like not a psycho or whatever. And then there'll be the next person would be like, okay, this person's not a psycho. Do they know what they're doing?
Yeah.
And then there'll be another one checking, do they really know what they're doing? And then they're like, okay, we like this person. Let's speak to the CEO. So like, you can still have the like psycho vetting and then jump straight to speaking to the CEO.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, seeing if there's a nice person, bang. It like skips a whole lot of steps because this person can do it. And they're already doing it in coding. Although it's not NFTs, they're still, the way they hire in coding is if you've completed a certain task, that goes on your certificate. And so the people hiring can see that you've completed this task, and they can hire you right away, because you also don't need to be that personable in that industry.
Yeah. Nicola, your thoughts?
All of these transactions are what you might call disintermediating. So they're cutting out the middleman. So in the world of IT and sort of switches, there was when the .bomb came, there was the disintermediation of what you called a value-added reseller. So the middleman would take technology, add value, and deliver maybe a product and a service to the customer. And then it wasn't perceived that the middlemen were adding enough value, so people went direct. And that happened for a time. And it put a lot of IT companies out of action. And then over time, what's happened is those companies, like a Dimension Data, which is now NTT, found new ways to add value, and it's sort of come back on stream as it used to be. So when I think of this and this mission to cut out the middleman, and I'm not saying it's bad, this is just an observation. And then you look at the economics of an environment and how taxes get paid and sometimes misappropriately used in certain parts of the world. We won't mention any, but in many parts of the world also appropriately used to service the livelihoods, medical care, infrastructure, education systems, research, agriculture of various countries. So that means when you're saying like the house, there's no middleman, there's no this, there's no the other. What that does is it takes money out of an economy, which is where you gather taxes, and puts it into the hands of an individual rather than into the hands of a government. So I can see this potentially being hugely disruptive, where suddenly governments don't have the resources or the funding because there's no middleman to capture the tax payments. In which case, how do governments get funded? In which case, how do countries get governed? Because you can't have a government without funding. You can't have a public service without funding. So I'm not saying this isn't a possibility, but I can see some economies where it can work quite efficiently because, like a smaller country like a Denmark or a Sweden, where you've got fairly educated people, good access to data, very good infrastructures, and a willingness to participate in something new. And then you go to another country that is an emerging market, has got high levels of unemployment. They don't have a big enough tax base already. But now we're going to take the tax out of that system. So what happens there? And I'm not saying any of that is right or wrong, and this shouldn't be. But if you think of the big picture, the downstream implications of what this has on societies and how societies are funded, and I'm not saying tax is a good thing, I'm just saying it will fundamentally change how countries are funded and possibly fundamentally change how governments are structured. So even though we're sort of playing in the metaverse, it will be interesting for me to see, while we pursue the elimination of the middleman, what legislation gets in place to bring the middleman back to the game. Mm-hmm. There could be windows of opportunity here. And eventually I can imagine they will get legislated. There'll be tax in the metaverse. There'll be meta tax.
NF tax.
Exactly. It's going to be a slow process, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth, because like the problems you're talking about is like if we took a sudden jump from A to B, and it's going to be a long journey getting to B. And in that process, obviously all parties who need and want to cut are going to try get their cut. And so, yeah, I do believe we're not going to get to B and then have those issues. We're just going to have infrastructure put in place that eradicate all those problems. So yeah, but sure. Yeah, you're right. Those are all going to have to be addressed. But that's why I'm very excited. I think there's a big shift coming in like the way we do most things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so Byron, thank you again so much for your time. Again, leaving this podcast with my mind scrambled, but so much to think about. I've got so many more questions I could ask you. And I think we've only just, scratched the surface here with you, as now that you kind of have a base, got the bones or the base understanding of NFTs, it just opens up a world of possibilities. So again, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. I strongly believe this won't be the last time you will be on the Think Connect podcast. That is for sure. And if people want to reach you, it's Byron Grealy on LinkedIn. Is there any other platforms they can reach you on?
Well, I'm on Instagram where I share my photography, and I think I should start putting those up as NFTs just for fun. I've got a few as NFTs, but yeah, LinkedIn is my main place to contact me. Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me. I really enjoy speaking about this stuff, and yeah, I do feel like we only scratched the surface. You guys ask great questions, and I'd be happy to go deeper.
Fantastic. Whenever. And then do not forget to check out the Thinking Fund. Nicola referred to the owls that they are working on now, and the rabbits or hares were an epic project. And be sure to look out for the owl NFTs, the Moonbirds 2.0s that might be coming out. And please don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe, guys. We really appreciate the support. Think Nick has hit over 100 subscribers, so we're celebrating the small wins. So we are really excited about the future and where we are going with this podcast. So guys, have a fantastic day. It was great to speak with you both, and we will see you again in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, cheers. Bye. For more news and content about Think Connect, go to www.thinkconnect.com or visit our Facebook or Instagram pages @Think Connect.